Ending a horror movie well is clearly an important part of any successful film, and while it's not uncommon for several alternative endings to be shot, sometimes different countries actually end up with vastly different finales. This can be for various reasons, and the following films all had different endings depending on where you were in the world at the time of their initial release. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are 8 horror movies with different endings in different countries. Number 8. Black Christmas 2006. If, like me, you saw 2006's Black Christmas in the UK cinema, you not only got a different ending to the US and other territories, but you got a massively reworked version of the entire movie, including numerous different, gorier death scenes. Most notable, the film's hospital set finale ends quite differently, with killer Billy Lentz dying from burns sustained in a fire as the hospital staff attempts in vain to revive him. In the more fist-pumping US ending though, Billy is killed when protagonist Kelly pushes him over a railing, causing him to be impaled on the bizarrely sharp tip of a Christmas tree, because of course that makes sense. Granted, neither ending turned this so-so movie into anything particularly great, though you can at least appreciate the decision to serve up a more exciting ending for US audiences, with that ending leaning a little more eagerly into the Black Christmas remake's generally schlocky vibe. Number 7. Paranormal Activity. While Oren Peli's Paranormal Activity was released in 2009, the film actually received its premiere at California's Screamfest 2 years earlier. And for those of us who may or may not have torrented the film back then, the 2009 release had a vastly different ending to what had been seen previously. Originally, Paranormal Activity ended with the possessed Katie killing her insufferable prick boyfriend Mika. Katie's friend discovers the body, calls the police, who arrive on the scene and confront Katie just as the demon relinquishes its hold on her. Unfortunately, Katie is left holding the knife as she walks towards the cops, as the demon slams a door that startles one of these cops and causes him to shoot Katie dead. Game over, man. Game over. However, when Paramount picked up the distribution rights of Paranormal Activity, they had Oren Peli shoot a new ending, in which Katie kills Mika, throws his corpse at the watching audience, and leaves that Katie character as still alive but declared missing. And of course, that leaves the door open for the various sequels which have followed. Number 6. Wrong Turn 4. Bloody Beginnings. If you watch the 4th Wrong Turn film in most of the world, and to be fair, you'll have done well to get that far into the franchise, you saw an unrelentingly bleak ending in which remaining survivors Kenya and Sarah flee the remaining cannibals in a snowmobile, only to drive straight into a razor wire trap and be instantly decapitated. Basically, the cannibals win and are free to continue their horrendous rampage. The end. But the German DVD release of Wrong Turn 4 received extensive cuts courtesy of ratings board FSK, resulting in almost 5 minutes of brutal violence being removed. This included the ending being trimmed, with the film instead concluding as Kenya and Sarah ride up on the snowmobile, and that's it, while neglecting to include the nasty surprise that's waiting for them. On the one hand, you can argue that the German ending is less mean-spirited, but is this really what writer-director Declan O'Brien intended? And come on, it's Wrong Turn. The meanness is, kind of the point. Number 5. Fatal Attraction. Starting as a classic thriller but going full-on horror with its final 2 acts, Fatal Attraction unforgettably ends with Bunny Boiler Alex being shot to death by Beth, the wife of Dan, the man who Alex is psychotically obsessed with after an affair. Yet if you saw the movie in Japan during its original theatrical release, things went a little differently, with a slightly bleaker, more complicated alternate ending which only surfaced on home media years later. That ending was actually the originally intended finale, with test screenings resulting in an entirely new ending being shot. In that original ending, Alex isn't killed by Beth, but instead she takes her own life, slitting her throat and framing Dan for a murder, resulting in his arrest. However, the harshness of this ending is mitigated by Beth discovering an audio tape in which Alex threatens to kill herself, and Beth then takes the tape to the police and clears her husband's name. While the reshot ending of Beth killing Alex and hugging her husband was viewed as the classic American family unit winning out against evil, even though Dan is a womanizing jerk and Beth was clearly mentally ill rather than some regular horror movie villain, Alex star Glenn Close resented filming that new ending, with it turning her character into a standard villain rather than the tragic, troubled figure of the original ending. Number 4. Hide and Seek. A whopping 5 endings were ultimately shot for 2005's psychological horror Hide and Seek, with the US theatrical release opting for the one in which evil is apparently vanquished, only for young Emily to be shown drawing a picture of herself with 2 heads. This suggests that she may have the very same dissociative identity disorder as her villainous father, David, or Charlie, whichever name he's going by. The ending for international audiences, however, shows Emily living her new life, only to reveal that her bedroom is actually a hospital room in a children's psych ward. Dr. Catherine Carson then tells a fellow doctor that she's going to keep visiting Emily to observe her behaviour. Given how endings range from bleak to ambiguous to hopeful were shot, it's clear that those behind Hide and Seek weren't all that sure how exactly to end this thing, and so they gave US audiences a more genre-typical final stinger, while the international ending proved more uncertain. Number 3. The Descent. Perhaps the most infamous region-specific ending in horror movie history belongs to Neil Marshall's superb The Descent. When the film premiered in the UK in 2005, it ended with protagonist Sarah seemingly escaping the crawler-infested cave system, only to wake up and realise, yep, she's actually still trapped inside, with the crawlers closing in on her position. When it came to packaging the film for US distribution though, test audiences found this ending too downcast, and so the decision was made to simply end the film early, cut it off when Sarah escapes without revealing that she's actually still in the cave. Yet given that The Descent Part 2 opens by revealing that Sarah escaped from the caves, we're forced to accept that the sunnier US ending is indeed canon. At the very least, Neil Marshall has stated he had numerous endings in mind for the film during shooting, and so he wasn't massively tied to the harsh original British finale. Number 2. Army of Darkness. If you watch the third Evil Dead film, Army of Darkness, in most of the world, it ends with Ashley J. Williams chugging a magic potion and successfully waking up back in the present day, before he makes short work of a deadite which invades the S-Mart store where he works. However, the original UK theatrical release featured an ending that Universal deemed too depressing for global distribution. In this version, Ash drinks too much of that potion and ends up oversleeping, waking up in a post-apocalyptic London where human civilization has seemingly been destroyed. A bearded Ash can only lament that he slept too long, and the film abruptly ends. As intriguingly bleak as the original UK ending is, the one reshot for the rest of the world is a blast on its own merits, and more to the point, it gave the world Ash's immortal catchphrase, "Hail to the King, baby." It's tough to resent that. Number 1. Invaders from Mars, 1953. When sci-fi horror film Invaders from Mars received its US theatrical release in 1953, it ended with young David McLean waking up during a thunderstorm and, upon running to his parents' bedroom, realizing that the entire alien invasion had in fact just been a dream. But when David returns to his room, he sees the very same alien saucer from his nightmare, implying that the invasion is about to happen for real. When it came to releasing the film in the UK the next year though, the British distributor expressed dissatisfaction with the dream ending, feeling it made for an unnecessary addendum. And so a new ending was shot in which the aliens are simply defeated, and David is put to bed by Dr. Kelston and Dr. Blake without any ambiguous implications whatsoever. This is an especially fascinating example given that bleak endings are almost always sanitized for stateside audiences rather than the British ones. In this case though, quite the opposite.